3, 2.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the latest webinar in our series of presentations designed to help Kansas companies expand their exports. Today, we will focus on export finance. We're pleased to have two experts on the subject making presentations on this webinar. Mr. Ian Lorenzana, the Export Finance Manager for the Small Business Administration, based out of St. Louis, Missouri, will speak first. Then, we will invite Mr. Mark Klein, who is the Managing Director for Lender Accounts with the Export-Import Bank, to make his presentation to our audience. My name is Jeff Willis, and I am the Director of the International Division here at the Kansas Department of Commerce. I will be your MC for today's event. I will also be joined by my colleague, Mr. Chang Lu, who, after the presentations of our two featured speakers, will talk about the ways that the Kansas Department of Commerce can help leverage Kansas business access and use of the export finance programs you will hear about today. This session will be recorded and will be accessible via our website once it has been posted. We look forward to any questions you may have, so please don't hesitate to post them at any time in the chat box. Towards the end of the program, we will go over your questions and hopefully have some good answers for you. Given today's subject matter and the expertise we have before you, please plan on this webinar to run the full hour. As mentioned before, our first speaker today is Mr. Ian Lorenzana. Ian began to office in St. Louis as SBA's Export Finance Manager for the region encompassing Missouri, Kansas, Nebraska, and Iowa in January 2021. As the Export Finance Manager, he directs the expansion and delivery of SBA's international trade and export finance solutions throughout the territory. Ian works closely with business owners, lending partners, and resource providers to help craft effective trade finance solutions and increase U.S. exports. Ian has a background in economic development, program management, and finance. He enjoys leveraging his experience to provide guidance to business owners and lending partners who depend on the SBA's programs. Since joining the agency in 2008, Ian has had the opportunity to work out of the Los Angeles District Office, the Utah District Office, and now SBA's Office of International Trade. During his pre-SBA career, Ian held a variety of titles, including personal banker, lending officer, licensed financial advisor, and division manager at several large national financial institutions, including Merrill Lynch, Wells Fargo, and Bank of America, as well as some regional lenders in the Los Angeles area. Ian, the webinar is now in your capable hands.
Hi, thank you, Jeff. Apologies, I was on mute still. Can everyone see my slides? There we are. Thank you very much. And I'll advance them from here. Hello and good morning. I want to thank my partners at the U.S. Commercial Service Office in Wichita and the Kansas Department of Commerce, as well as my co-presenter Mark Klein from EXIM Bank, for all their work on today's event and for having me be a part of it. Again, as Jeff mentioned, my name is Ian Lorenzana, and I'm an Export Finance Manager with the SBA Office of International Trade. I'm based in St. Louis, but I work with business owners, lenders, and partner organizations throughout the states of Missouri, Kansas, Nebraska, and Iowa. Again, I did join the SBA in 2008, and back then I focused primarily on economic development programs that help entrepreneurs start and grow their businesses. It was great because I got to see ventures in their earliest stages. Many times they were hardly more than ideas, and watched many of them grow into healthy, successful businesses. My job was to plug the right resources in at the right time in order to make the most impact. I started out in the Los Angeles district office again and transferred to Salt Lake City district office in 2012 and made the move to St. Louis in January of 2021. Now, I would be remiss, speaking of district offices, if I didn't provide you with the contact information for the team at the Wichita district office. District Director Wayne Bell and Deputy District Director Sarah Haymaker do a great job leading the team there, and I encourage all Kansas-based business owners to reach out to them for any business help that you might have. The phone number for the district office is 316-269-6616. Once again, that's 316-269-6616. Now, specific to export funding, I invite business owners, lenders, and resource partners to reach out to me if there's any way I can be of assistance. At SBA's Office of International Trade, I have a strong team beside me, and we're all here to help. Now, the U.S. Small Business Administration, better known as SBA, was created in 1953 as an independent federal agency. Even today, our mission is to assist and protect the interests of small businesses, to support free competitive enterprise, and to maintain and strengthen the overall economy of the United States. We go about our mission by leveraging what we call our 3 C's: capital, counseling, and contracting. The first C, capital, helps SBA make capital available through lending partners such as banks, credit unions, and other mission-oriented lenders and nonprofit organizations. Most loans are made through our 2 main programs, the 7A and 504 loan programs. I know the names are overwhelmingly creative. SBA guaranteed loans have competitive terms with rates and fees that are comparable to non-guaranteed loans. Oftentimes, our loans offer lower down payments than you would otherwise find. Some loan programs even come with the added benefit of continued support in the form of counseling and education to make sure that business owners that borrow continue to run healthy enterprises that are able to repay their loans. Now, our loans start small, with the microloan offering loans as low as $50,000 or less, all the way up to the 7A and 504 loan programs, which max out at $5 million. These programs can be used to fund a wide variety of business needs, like purchasing inventory, supplies, and raw material, working capital, financing large fixed equipment, and even purchasing or improving land or buildings used by a business. Our second C is counseling. Nearly every business owner can use sound, reliable guidance, whether they're experienced at managing their business or just starting out in entrepreneurship. SBA helps businesses compete in local, national, and global markets by providing high-quality business training and counseling services. We deliver most of our business training and counseling through a variety of programs, including small business development centers, or SBDCs as they're known, women's business centers, volunteer business mentors through an organization called SCORE, and veterans business outreach centers, which are dedicated to serving the military community. So far we have capital and counseling, and our third C stands for contracting. The SBA oversees several programs that help small businesses become more competitive in the federal contracting arena, to help them qualify for contracts that are set aside exclusively for small businesses, and to get started in targeting businesses, mentoring and educating so that they can continue to grow their knowledge about how federal government contracting works. They can also partner with experienced contractors to win contracts that they wouldn't otherwise be considered for. Those are our 3 C's, but in addition to our long-standing core programs, SBA continues to innovate and roll out initiatives to meet the needs of American small businesses, including our Emerging Leaders Program. It's our popular mini MBA program designed in collaboration with Boston University's Entrepreneurial Management Institute. Also, the Community Navigator Program, which is increasing access to business resources in underserved communities by partnering with and funding organizations that are already doing good work in those spaces. Without the support of these programs and services, many of our nation's small businesses would surely struggle far more than they may already be, or simply not exist at all. This is a snapshot of the organization that comprises the SBA. 68 district offices scattered throughout the country, including Hawaii, Guam, and Puerto Rico. The SBDC, which has nearly 1,000 service centers across the nation. SCORE, again, that volunteer group of business mentors that have assisted over 11 million entrepreneurs total. WBC, or the Women's Business Centers, which were launched in 1988 and are well equipped to help women business owners overcome the obstacles that they face, particularly as women business owners. The Vboc, or Veterans Business Outreach Center, which has regional centers all around the country aimed at helping veterans and those still in the military but close to being on the civilian side to plan out their entrepreneurial pursuits. They help both the military personnel and their spouses and families, as well as, of course, the SBA Office of International Trade, located in 21 U.S. Export Assistance Centers, or USIACs, all around the country, of which I am one, serving out of the St. Louis metro area. Again, I cover 4 states, including Missouri, Nebraska, Iowa, and Kansas. Now, no matter how good the plan is, the cost to implementing an export strategy can quickly add up. And regardless of all the support that's available, even if they've received inquiries from potential customers overseas, some small business owners simply walk away from exporting opportunities because many lenders are reluctant to finance international trade costs. Now that's where the SBA's Office of International Trade comes in. Our 3 core export finance programs are the Export Express, which provides smaller loans to help with export development, Export Working Capital Program, which is designed to help business owners fulfill their export orders, and International Trade Loan, which is used to expand exporter capacity. Some common regulations among the programs are that small businesses must be small businesses per the SBA size standards. Those can be found on the SBA website or simply by Googling SBA size standards. The buyers must be in countries that are okayed per the EXIM Bank country limitation schedule. Again, you can Google that term, EXIM Bank country limitation schedule, and you'll find that list there. Again, you're going to have a difficult time finding financing in countries today, anyhow, like Afghanistan, Cuba, Iran, North Korea, Syria, and currently Ukraine. The business must export from the United States. So currently, no drop shipping is allowed. Also currently, there is no U.S. content policy or minimum in effect, except for one caveat in the STEP grant, and that'll be described a little bit further on in not my presentation, but another one of our speakers' presentations. Licensed military sales are eligible under SBA financing. However, the business is expected to have a current and viable export business plan that's already developed. Now, going back to the SBDC, WBC, Vboc, SCORE, any of our resource providers, they can help you to develop these business plans, as well as export plans, marketing plans, and all sorts of other tools that are helpful in conducting and managing your business. And lastly, the business needs to develop and present a 12-month export revenue production. And now that's going to be a part of a good, concise export business plan. So I urge you, take advantage of those business advising and training services. So moving on to our first program, the Export Express. It provides smaller loans to help with export development and offers both borrowers and lenders flexibility and ease of use. It's the simplest export loan program offered by SBA and allows participating lenders to use their own forms, to follow their own procedures, and to rely on their own analyses. Not only is this the simplest export loan program, it's also one of the fastest to process and can usually provide an approval or a denial within just a couple of days after the application is submitted. In general, SBA looks for businesses to be in operations for at least 1 year and able to demonstrate that the loan proceeds will support their export development activity. Once approved, loan proceeds can be used for a variety of business purposes. Export development, such as paying to participate in foreign trade shows, translating a company's marketing material and website into foreign languages, and securing patents and trademarks. Or financing export orders, like buying inventory, paying staff wages, and offering credit terms to foreign buyers. It can also help to free up cash by financing standby letters of credit that serve as bid or performance bonds and advance payment guarantees. Or you can even purchase fixed assets, such as large equipment or even real estate, as long as it supports international sales. Export Express can take the form of a term loan or revolving line of credit, and depending on the use of funds, the term can be up to 25 years. Now, one reality exporters deal with is that many U.S. banks don't provide working capital advances on export orders, export receivables, or letters of credit. Now, this is a major reason that some small businesses lack export working capital. Through the Export Working Capital Program, also known as Ewcp, SBA provides lenders with up to a 90% guarantee on export loans and lines of credit. The idea is that this credit enhancement will incentivize lenders to make loans that they wouldn't otherwise consider. Export finance managers, such as myself, work with borrowers and lenders around the country to explain SBA's export lending programs, the application process, standard operating procedures, documents, and forms, and to guide borrowers and lenders through the entire process. Exporters can even apply for an Ewcp loan before they finalize an export sale or contract. As a matter of fact, with an approved Ewcp loan or line in place, exporters have a greater leverage and flexibility when negotiating export payment terms. They also have peace of mind that adequate financing will be in place, ready and waiting, when the export order is won. Some benefits of using the Ewcp include the ability to finance the production of goods to be exported, payments to suppliers, and the cost of inventory and materials. Ewcp provides vital export working capital during long payment cycles. Ewcp can be used to issue standby letters of credit for bid, performance, or advance payment bonds or guarantees, to pay for insurance and freight costs. The program also helps companies preserve domestic working capital for sales within the U.S. And lastly, EWCP makes companies more competitive because they can fund foreign accounts receivable and extend more generous sales terms to their buyers. This program has a maximum maturity between 1 and 3 years, after which the lender can renew or reissue the line or loan. EWCP also features a maximum loan amount of up to $5 million per borrower and a 90% SBA guarantee. It really is a very useful product both for the borrower and the lender. Now, the last program I'll touch on today is our International Trade Loan Program. This program provides long-term financing to businesses that are starting or already engaged in exporting and companies that need to expand because of growing export sales. Potential borrowers for an international trade loan also include businesses that have already been adversely affected by competition from imports coming into the United States. The idea is to provide American businesses with the funding that they need to retool and reposition themselves and ultimately become more effective versus foreign imports. International trade loans can be used to acquire, renovate, and or modernize facilities or equipment used in making products or services to be exported. Plus, they can be used for permanent working capital and to refinance business debts that are currently on unreasonable terms. Again, maturity is based on the use of proceeds and the borrower's ability to repay the loan, not necessarily based on the available credit. Maximum maturity for international trade loans depends on the use of funds. So permanent working capital can be up to 10 years. Fixed assets, like large fixed equipment and machinery, can be up to 10 years or the useful life of the equipment, but not to exceed 15 years. And real estate can have a maturity up to 25 years. Again, the maximum loan amount is $5 million and the maximum loan guarantee is 90%. And so with that, that was a quick rundown of some of the great resources available from SBA. And I hope that this information will be useful to you. In closing, I want to thank you for your attention and invite you to contact me with related questions or to begin taking advantage of our program. Again, my name is Ian Lorenzana, and I am at your service.
Well, thank you, Ian. We appreciated that presentation very much. Our next speaker is Mr. Mark Klein. Mark is a managing director, lender accounts with EXIM, and works closely with lenders throughout the United States and promotes EXIM's products and services that are beneficial both to the banks and their exporting customers. Mark also maintains regional director responsibilities and works with exporters, small, medium, and large, throughout the Midwest. Primary focus is the Kentucky, Ohio, Missouri, and Kansas markets, but Mark also works with companies located throughout the 19-state territory of the Central Region office. Mark has been with the EXIM Bank for more than 11 years. Prior to joining EXIM Bank, Mark was an international banking services specialist for 3 commercial banks and worked with exporters in Kentucky, Indiana, Ohio, Tennessee, and West Virginia. Mark counseled these exporters on a variety of issues, including, but not limited to, letters of credit, foreign exchange risk mitigation, and export credit insurance. Mark, the floor, or should I say, the screen is yours.
Fantastic. And Mike, can you give me a thumbs up if you guys can see my screen? And there it is. Fantastic. So you basically have me for 20 minutes. I always refer to this as a fasten your seatbelts presentation because I'm going to cover a lot of content, but the good news is that we're going to have plenty of room for questions and answers at the end. So jumping right in, one of the, advance my screen here real quick. So unlike the SBA, I'm on a little bit of a disadvantage to where everybody knows who the SBA is, but a lot of companies in the United States, they've never heard of EXIM before. I've never heard of the Export-Import Bank of the United States. So I like to do a little background as to who we are. We are a federal government agency. We're an executive branch agency. We're one of the best kept government secrets out there. We've been around since 1934. So we're into our 88th year, yet a lot of companies have absolutely no idea what we do. We are the official export credit agency for the United States, or ECA. And you're going to hear me use that term ECA a lot over the next 15 to 20 minutes. The role of an ECA is in essence to level the playing field. We want to end my role as EXIM ECA is, and this has been a role since 1934 when we were founded 88 years ago, is we want to make sure that we support U.S. jobs. And I'm going to come back to that in a little bit because we're going to talk about U.S. content. Ian mentioned content a little bit. I'm going to talk a little bit about content because it's one of our really important rules as far as what we can do. There again, it all goes back to the fact that we're trying to help U.S. companies export, because the more they export, the more people they have to hire. One of the myths of EXIM Bank is that if you're not Boeing or GE or Case New Holland or Caterpillar, you're too small for us. Absolutely positively incorrect. Some of our friends in Congress, they seem to have issues getting this right. But 90% of the number of transactions that we touch on a regular basis are for small business. And when I'm talking small business, I'm talking one-person operations, two-person operations. No company is too small. Now we work with the big companies too. So in the flip side, there's no company is too small, no company is too big. But the majority of the time of my time is spent working with smaller businesses, and there's no transaction that's too small. I can, I've insured, and we're going to talk a little bit about insurance in a little bit. I've insured invoices that were just, thousands of dollars and less than 10,000, $4,000 or $5,000, $6,000. It's a very flexible program. And so if you ever hear anybody talk about the fact that, oh, EXIM only helps the big guys, or, it's capital, it's cronyism and all that kind of good stuff. Not true. We like our small businesses very much. ECAs. Let's talk a little bit about ECAs, these export credit agencies. There's 114 of them in the world. So it's not just about EXIM Bank. Every developed country has an ECA or an EXIM Bank. Your developing countries are growing EXIM banks. And this chart this is 2020 closing figures. 2020 down year, obviously. 2021, when we report those figures, a down year. But all that I want to, we could dig into this slide a whole lot more, but it just, every developed country does this. So for the United States in 2020, we did $1.8 billion in what's called official export finance. Now, 1.8 billion, that's not too bad. Everybody, we like billions. We like the B word. Until you look at China. They did 18 billion, 10 times the amount that we did. That circle in the middle, that's the Eurozone. If you add all those little circles up and get for the big number, it's about 50 billion. So I guess the moral of this story is we could be doing a whole lot more. We would love to be doing a whole lot more. It's just, we're still one of those best kept government secrets out there. As a government agency, they frown upon us taking out ads alongside Colin Jost and Scarlett Johansson during the Super Bowl. So word of mouth. I do a lot of these type of events. I like it even better when I can do them in person. I think hopefully in the near future we'll be getting those. So We can talk about this chart more later if you guys want to. So what, at the end of the day, and we talked a little bit about this, what's the role of an ECA? It is not to compete with the private sector. It is to supplement the private sector. It's to help the private sector. I'm not trying to take business away from banks. I work with banks. I love my banks. I help them do their job a little bit better. Ultimately, the role of an ECA, and this is my most favorite slide of the whole program. If you're old like me, you know who this is. If you're younger, this is from the old Popeye cartoon. This is Wimpy. Wimpy loved his hamburgers. Wimpy never had money to pay for his hamburgers. Trust me, if you're an exporting company, this is every single foreign buyer that you talk to. They want to buy your US made product. They just don't have the money to pay for it. So what does that mean? They ask you for supplier credit. They're asking you to export the product to them today, and they're going to pay you for it in some point in time in the future. They want you to arrange financing for them. They do not want this. I'm a former letter of credit banker. For those of you on the call that know what this is a letter of credit transaction. Now you might say, oh my God, what? Trust me, these work. I love my letters of credit. Just trying to put this out there. This is why your buyers, if you ask for cash up front, you may not be getting the response you like. If you ask for them to go get a letter of credit, they may not be happy with that either, because letters of credit can get complicated. You have to know what you're doing. They can be expensive. So basically, when your buyer is asking for you to arrange some type of financing, it's not this. What they are looking for, though, is, and we have a couple different products that help this, we help arrange financing for them. Now, as a government agency, I don't lend money. The SBA doesn't lend money. But what we do is, in my case, we work in the world of insurance and guarantees. So the first one, I'm going to kind of touch on these three core services very quickly. I want to spend the most time on that very first one, the foreign accounts receivable insurance, because that's our bread and butter, and that's the one that we work with most of the companies on. What is foreign accounts receivable insurance or export credit insurance? It's exactly what it sounds like. It's going to give you the flexibility to sell your product outside the United States and treat that buyer like you would a domestic customer. You're going to give them terms, 30, 60, 90 days. Most companies, that scares them to death until I explain that with my insurance, and I'm going to kind of dig into that a little bit more, you're going to be able to transfer the majority of that repayment risk over to the US government. We always like to jokingly say we're in the sleep business. We give you the ability, we give the US exporter, we give you the ability to export your product, await payment for 60, 90 days from date of export, knowing that if you don't get paid the way you're supposed to, you're going to call me and I'm going to take care of it. In essence, that's foreign account receivable insurance. I'm going to dig into a little bit more. The really nice thing is it's a risk mitigation tool for you. It's a sales tool, you know, for when you're extending terms. I attend a lot of trade shows, and I know for a fact that foreign buyers do not like to, as I said before, they don't like to hear cash up front. In some countries, it's impossible. There's some markets to where their central bank will not allow them to pay for product until the product is in country. So cash up front is impossible. It's illegal in some countries. So that's not going to work. Letters of credit, talked about letters of credit. What they want is they want the flexibility. It's a sales tool for them. You know, you give them 60 to 90 days to pay. That's a lot friendlier than cash up front. It makes your bankers happy. And that's that last point. Foreign accounts receivable, if you talk to your commercial lender, they don't want to talk about them. They're certainly not going to let you borrow against them. Basically, a foreign account receivable is a dead asset on your balance sheet until you insure it. I get insurance in place. I assign that policy over to your banker. They will then let you borrow against that foreign account receivable, just like they would a domestic account receivable. They'll include it in your borrowing base. It's no longer a debt asset. So how does this work? And the point of this slide is I really want to, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that broker part a little bit later. But what this is in essence is you got EXIM and the U.S. exporter. I put an insurance policy in place. What does that insurance policy do? I vet your buyer. I make sure they're credit worthy. I put a policy in place that basically says, hey, look, if you don't get paid, you're going to call Mark, you're going to file a claim. You have transferred the majority of your repayment risk over to the U.S. government. And there's not many countries, and I'm going to talk a little bit about our country limitation schedule. Ian mentioned this earlier. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that, but there's not too many countries that I'm closed for business in. So what is my insurance? When I talk about this, what does it cover? It covers commercial risk. Commercial risk is basically something bad has happened to your buyer, and that's why they can't pay you. It covers political risk. Something bad has happened in your buyer's country, and that's why they can't pay you. So commercial risk is, it's slow pay. Your buyer filed for bankruptcy. They declared insolvency. That's why they can't pay. Political risk, a good example of this is, obviously war, revolution, that's never a good thing. Central bank turns off the faucet and basically says the local currency can no longer be converted into a hard currency for you to make payment. That's covered. That's currency transfer risk. Basically, it's not your buyer's fault that they can't issue you a wire transfer. It's just that the central bank ran out of dollars. They ran out of euros. They ran out of pound sterling, and you just can't get paid because their central bank has turned off the faucet. That's covered. I always like to say that our policies come in two flavors, multi-buyer and single buyer. So I've got a couple examples of the multi-buyer I'm going to talk about, and the single buyer as well. A multi-buyer is 95% protection. So you're going to set up a policy with me. We're going to prove your buyers. And if you don't get paid, you're going to file a claim with me and you get 95% of what's owed to you. So you're transferring all but 5% of your repayment risk over to the U.S. government. Point of this slide, Express Insurance. It's my training wheels multi-buyer policy. It's phenomenal for young exporters that have maybe not exported before. Maybe they've not used export credit insurance before. They've never extended terms on exports before. They're kind of newbies. They're new to this. So we have an Export Express insurance, training wheels. Lots of hand holding go along with this policy. And in spite of all the hand holding, if you look on the right side of the slide, if you're offering up to 60-day terms, it's going to cost you a whopping 0.65%. So a $100,000 invoice, you're going to give your buyer 60 days to pay. You insure it through me, which provides you 95% protection on that $100,000 invoice. I'm going to charge you $650. It's very inexpensive. And it's very easy because it's so cheap. It's easy to pass that cost on to your buyer, and they will happily pay for it. Because to pay you $650 on that $100,000 invoice is a whole lot easier and a whole lot cheaper for them having to go to their bank and borrow the money. So that's just an example of a multi-buyer policy. What if you don't need training wheels? What if you're an experienced exporter? I have a select risk multi-buyer. I have a standard multi-buyer. I've even got a small business multi-buyer. Lots of flexibility to where you can either come to me with your entire export portfolio. I can put a policy in place with 95% coverage, or you can come to me with a portion of your export portfolio, and I can still give you 95% coverage. A lot of companies I work with, they have multi-year relationships with some distributors. They have no interest in insuring those guys. They know they're going to get paid. They self-insure those. They come to me with the buyers that are maybe a little newer, maybe a little riskier countries. Maybe it's Latin America and they just have a Latin America policy that everything in Latin America is on insurance. Everything in West Africa is insurance. Western Europe, we self-insure those. Lots of flexibility, but at the end of the day, 95% cover. Just for time's sake, I'm going to skip through our case study a little bit. I'm going to jump right to our single buyer. I want to allow plenty of time for Lou to be able to talk about the STEP grant after I finish up. Single buyer, it's exactly what it sounds like. I'm not going to look at your export portfolio. You're going to come to me on a buyer by buyer basis. I'll put coverage in place. It's going to provide 90% coverage, not 95, that's multi-buyer, but under single buyer, 90% coverage. You're still transferring all but 10% of your payment risk over to us. Tends to be a little bit more expensive in this example. This is UAE. So if you have a 60-day payable in the UAE, 90% coverage, I'm going to charge you 0.67%. So not 0.65%, it's a little bit more expensive because it's select risk. It's not, to put it in common terms, you're basically a single buyer policies, you're basically coming to me and you want to insure your 16-year-old son that just got his driver's license, but you don't want to include anything else. You don't want to give me your homeowners and your rental property and all the other drivers. You just want me to take that high-risk 16-year-old son that just got his driver's license. We can do it. Coverage is 90% instead of 95, and typically the premium is a little bit more expensive. I'm going to fly through the case study here. Eligibility requirement. You just, I don't really have a good solution for startups. So we just ask at least be in business for a year, or if you are less than a year, do you have a management team that is experienced in doing what you do? If that's the case, I can probably get around that 1 year in business eligibility requirements. Qualifying a foreign buyer, I've got a really nice infographic on this. Obviously, I want to make sure that your foreign buyer is credible. I want to make sure there's a reasonable assurance of repayment. Whether that's trade references, credit bureaus, or I look at financials, we're going to make sure that that we're putting risk where it belongs. A couple more quick slides. Insurance brokers, we always work with brokers. Don't let the B word scare you. I pay for them, but they're the ones, when I talked about that express policy, they're the ones that provide that hand holding. So I can't speak highly enough about our trade credit insurance specialists that help us. Foreign buyer financing, just to make sure I have enough time for Lou, I want you to think planes, trains, cranes, big capital equipment. Instead of 60, 90 days, your buyer may need 5 to 7 years. I've got a fix for that. I don't lend the money directly. We work with a network of lenders and non-lenders. They provide the 5, 6, 7, up to 10-year financing under medium term for your buyer. Very attractive interest rates, better terms, better rates than they could possibly get in country. That's under foreign buyer financing. Working capital guarantee, I'm not going to spend much time on this. Ian did a phenomenal job. Our working capital guarantee program is very similar to Ian's export working capital program, the Ewcp. Big difference, E can go up to 5 million. I can do any size. I can do 1 million up to our highest that we've ever done was 750 million. So what I always like to say in this slide, commercial lender, we always start with your bank. And ideally the bank that already has a borrowing relationship in place with you. They like you. They're already lending money to help support your domestic business. Now you need to grow your exports. That works really well. We talk to the lender. They may, if it's under 5 million, they may opt to go with Ian's 90% principal and interest guarantee. They may opt to go with EXIM's 90% principal and interest guarantee. Ian and I play very nicely in the same sandbox. We're going to talk to the lender and determine which program is the best fit for them. but it always starts with a lender. And it always works best if we're talking to a lender that knows you, likes you, is taking you to lunch. You've played golf a couple times together. I don't have a magic wand. If you don't have an existing banking relationship, I'm not saying I can't do it. It always works best when there's already a lender out there that's just looking for an excuse to lend you money. They just need that 90% principal and interest guarantee to get it across the finish line. Restrictions, the important one I want to talk about, country limitation schedule. This is on our website. It's under tools for exporters. It is a very nice, pretty web spreadsheet that tells you whether I'm open for coverage or closed for coverage in certain markets. This is a little bit older one because you notice on this one, it looks like Argentina is okay. You don't see any X's in Argentina. If you go to my website today, you will see X's across the board in Argentina. I am closed in Argentina. Wish I wasn't, but Argentina being Argentina, we open them for a few months and then something happens in their banking sector or they have a wonky election and we got to close Argentina again. But it's on our website, tools for exporters, country limitation schedule. The SBA kind of uses it as reference. I always recommend any exporting company use this as reference to know whether or not a market that you're looking to go into, whether it's a no-go or not. If I can't get comfortable with the credit risk, Argentina is a good example. If I can't get comfortable with the credit risk, please do not try to take it upon yourself to get comfortable with the credit risk. You will lose money. There's my contact information. I only ran a couple minutes over. I'll buy Lou a beer next time I see him when I'm in Kansas City. That's my contact information. Feel free to reach out to me and I will hang around for questions and answers.
Thank you, Mark. Next, I would like to introduce my colleague here at the Kansas Department of Commerce, Mr. Chang Liu. Liu handles, among other things, our State Trade Expansion Program activities, STEP activities, and has been with the department for well over a decade. Many on our webinar know Liu and recognize his talent for thoroughness and his in-depth knowledge of the many subjects he's called upon to master. He will also help with our chat room questions after his presentation and wrap the event up after the questions have been answered. Liu, I could go on and on about your extensive background in international trade promotion, but in the interest of time, we'll turn things over to you right now. Liu, please bring us up to speed about what the Kansas Department of Commerce can do to help our Kansas company audience.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you for the great introduction. And Mark, don't worry about the couple of minutes. I'll make it fast. I love your background with all the seals. Looks very official. Mine's so a blur. That's actually a good description for my current stage right now. I just broke my leg recently, so and we had a new baby all together. So if I make any weird faces or if there's a baby crying, screaming, don't be alarmed. Okay, let's jump into the discussion today. So thanks to the SBA and all of our resource partners, the Kansas Department of Commerce received STEP funds during the current grant year. Now, STEP stands for State Trade Expansion Program, as Jeff mentioned earlier. Qualified small, medium-sized company can utilize this program to cover many export-related activities. Some of those activities include training, trade shows and missions, and market interest support. For example, EXIM Bank's credit insurance service, translations, interpretations, getting foreign conformity, such as CE marks, any U.S. commercial service programs and services, their Gold Key Match Service, International Partner Search. So the possibility is endless. There's lots of things we can support. So if you have heard of these already, use it as a review. If you haven't, feel free to contact me if you need more information later on. So let's start with what is STEP grant. Now the STEP grant has been around for a while now. It is a federal program, came through the SBA and managed at the state level. The goal is to help new exporters to start and existing exporters to expand into additional markets. That's the goal, and that's what the program is. So every year, all 50 states plus territories, we have to apply and propose our activities to the SBA. So whatever we can offer this year may not be the same in next year because we have to be competitive. We have to keep tweaking our programs. So keep that in mind. If there's something you want to do and it's a supported activity right now, I would recommend you to do it now versus waiting for next year because we can't project future grants funding availability. And when is the STEP program? Now, the current grant year actually ends on September 28th, 2022. So you have a little bit over 7 months to get everything done. Now, what I mean by done is your activity has to be completed on or before September 28th. Now, let's say you went to a foreign trade show. So by September 28th, you need to be back in Kansas. If you are conducting a business partner search by September 28th, you need to have the research concluded. Now let's talk about how. How do you apply? How do you qualify? And what's the whole process? So to qualify, there are a couple of requirements we put in place. Number one, you have to be a Kansas company. If we have any Missouri participants here, let me know. I can connect you to our Missouri counterparts, and they have the STEP grant as well. And your product must be produced or value added in Kansas. So if you're doing manufacturing out of Kansas, just has a sales office here, that typically will not qualify you for the STEP program. And thirdly, the product must contain at least 51% of US content. If you're not sure how that's calculated, let me know. And we normally ask the US Commercial Service. We have 2 offices here, one in Kansas City, one in Wichita, and they can help you determine if you meet the 51% content requirement. And after that, you have to be able to qualify as a small, medium-sized company by SBA standard. If you know your NAICS code, you can find out the thresholds on the SBA's website. If you need more assistance, we'll be happy to help. Just reach out to me. And then you cannot be debarred from doing business with any federal agencies. So that means the IRS is not knocking on your door. The FBI is not chasing you. Luckily, we haven't had that issue yet, but I just want to bring it up. And lastly, you have to be in business for not less than 1 year. So let's say you want to submit a STEP application today on February 16th, you have to be in business on or before February 16th, 2021. So not less than 1 year. And that is all the requirements we have. I'll tell you the process. So you can go onto our website, kansascommerce.gov/STEP. And that's our STEP landing page. Once you get on there, towards the middle of the page on the left-hand side, there's a button. It says apply now. Click on it. It will open up the application packet. And there are 4 documents included. There's the application itself, and then 3 forms you have to sign. We try to make it easy for companies. So as long as you know what's your company name, where you're located, normally you can complete those 3 forms under 15 minutes. And once you're done, send it to me. I'll get it approved or request more info. And once you get our approval documents, you can go ahead and pay for the activity. If it's a show you want to attend, purchase your booth. If it's a training activity, pay for the registration. If it's EXIM Bank, you can work with Mark. And once you're done with the activity, send us the receipt and we will reimburse you. The reimbursement level is different depending on the specific activities you have in mind. For import-export banks activity, right now we can provide up to $1,000 per company. That is the current threshold we established. Like I said earlier, the program ends in September 2022. So depending on funding utilization at that point, we might be able to adjust the limit based on your actual needs. So keep that in mind. Again, one thing I just want to double stress it is you have to apply first, get approved before you actually conduct the activity. If you already paid for it before you already completed before you apply, normally we will not be able to reimburse you. So that is the process. Now on the other activities we have, we can provide some foreign sales trip money. So if you're flying to a different country, I'm still getting clarification from the SBA to see if you can meet with a foreign client in the US. That one, I don't have the answer yet. I'll keep everybody posted. But for now, if you're going to a foreign country, meeting with a potential business partner, a buyer, a distributor, anybody that you're discussing potential sales, we can help to pay for the airfare. And that is up to $1,500 per company. You have to follow the Fly America requirement, and that means you have to fly with United, Delta, American, main economy. Economy Plus or premium economy is not allowed. Keep that in mind. And the foreign certification that includes CE marks for European market, CCC for the Chinese market, and any other one that you need. But if it's not CE, you need to send me an email so I can get pre-approval. We can use that money to pay for product testing, to pay for engineering review. What you cannot use it for is to pay your own engineer to design it in-house or conduct testing in-house. It has to be done by a certified laboratory outside of your operation. And if we have any entrepreneurs, new startups here who sells online, we can provide up to $1,000 for e-commerce website maintenance fee. This is new to us, so I may not have all the answers. But if you think that might interest you, if you're selling, let's say, through Amazon to overseas market, overseas buyers, if you're selling on Alibaba, feel free to reach out to me, and I can get more details for you. And that pretty much concludes the STAT program. Now on the trade show part, I want to mention we do have a air show coming up, and that's the Farnborough Air Show in July. So if we have any aviation companies here, please consider that show. This is the first time we're doing an in-person show, in-person air show since the pandemic had started. For domestic trade shows, we can support in-person, digital, or overseas if you need to go overseas. Let's say if there's an international, scuba diving equipment show. I don't know why that came to mind. If the show is in Las Vegas, as long as it has international in the name and the show attracts a significant number of international buyers, we can help to pay for it too. And you can get money to pay for registration, for booth rental, for booth construction. So again, thanks to the SBA and all of our resource partners, we're able to get this money between now and September. And we're really hoping we can have more Kansas exporters, new exporters, existing exporters to take advantage of the program. You can always find my contact information on our website. Feel free to email me or just to call me, and I can get questions answered. Let's see, do we have any questions here? Okay, I do see AJ. AJ is with Commercial Service in Wichita. A question from AJ, given all that's going on in Ukraine right now, which is good export market for Kansas agricultural machinery, is it currently open for SBA EXIM finance assistance and insurance? So I think that would be a great question for Mark and Ian. Feel free to jump in. And for all the participants, we still have a couple of minutes. If you have more questions, please feel free to add. Thanks.
Hey, AJ, it's Mark. So as it sits right now, don't have CNN on my TV. As of right now, we're open for coverage in Ukraine. We remain closed for new business in Russia. We've been closed for new business in Russia since 2014, the last time that we had some issues on the Crimean Peninsula. My guess is that if everything kind of just cools off and everything stays the way it is, we'll still be open for business in Ukraine. We'll still probably be closed for new business in Russia. If tensions escalate, we will probably close in Ukraine and remain closed in Russia. So just following, assuming that we follow the same model we did in 2014, the best answer is we're open today, but we might be closed tomorrow, depending on what happens over there.
Hi,
Thank you, Mark.
everyone. This is Peter. So just as Mark said, and like I mentioned earlier on, we're going to follow the EXIM Bank country limitation schedule. So if they're open for business, there's a possibility that you can get a loan through. Having said that, with everything that is going on, we know that it's politically unstable and it's risky right now. So just because there are no restrictions currently that I'm aware of, the risk is really high, especially when you consider the time that it takes to prepare an export, get it shipped over, and then expect payment from a buyer in Ukraine. So is it allowable right now? As far as I know, until EXIM Bank country limitation schedule says otherwise, but is it wise? I wouldn't say so. Thanks for the question, AJ.
Thank you, Ian, and thank you, Mark. Great feedback. I don't see any other questions right now, and we are right at 11 o'clock. So I think we're going to end it. If you have questions you forgot to ask, just email it to us, and we will make sure we get answers for you. Thank you, everybody, for your time and participants. Just remember, help is out there. You heard from the SBA, heard from EXIM Bank, and then from me, there are multiple programs in place can help you make export a little bit easier. With that, thank you so much again. Please, I think Jeff may want to add something, so I'll turn it back to Jeff. Look out for our future program announcement. Thanks.
Well, thank you to all of our presenters, and thank you, Lou, for that wonderful explanation about how we can make use of STEP funds to be able to help Kansas companies improve their export positions. Right now, I was just handed a note, and the reason I'm back on is wanted everybody to know, don't yet know the extent of it, but apparently there was some sort of a technical glitch during the course of the presentation, and I just wanted to remind everybody that if indeed they were unable to hear this presentation in its entirety, it will be available online by going to the Kansas Department of Commerce website, and you'll see not just this webinar, but all of the webinars that we've done to date. And we've covered a number of very interesting subjects, so I encourage everybody to take a look at that list. Apologize for any problems this may have caused because of the technical challenges that arose. But again, thank you all for being part of this webinar, and we look forward to being able to work with you in the future. Thank you.